This is Keep On Cooking, a podcast for people who love cookbooks and want to know more about the authors. It's also a great place to get a weekly dose of culinary inspiration to keep things pumping in the kitchen. So grab a cookbook and keep on cooking. I'm Dustin Harder, and this is Keep On Cooking. Hello and welcome to Keep On Cooking, the only podcast dedicated to plant-based cookbooks. I'm your host, Dustin Harder, and if bad decisions were an Olympic sport, we would be on a Wheaties box. That's us. Please also welcome my husband, David Rossetti. Hello, darling.
Hello, darling.
Hello, darling.
Are Wheaties vegan? They gotta be,
You
right?
know, I don't know
That's a
because
good question.
I don't eat cereal really
I know,
anymore.
we don't.
We throw down on some granola.
Yeah,
But
granola, yeah.
cereal,
Cereal.
I mean, because cereal is a death trap. And I'm not even talking about the health. I'm talking about the how you and I can crush a box of cereal in like one sitting.
But I feel like cereal was very like 80s. That felt very like 80s to me, like Frosted Flakes.
Yes, and the other thing about that is, in my personal opinion, all bad food habits came out of the 1980s.
Well, that's true.
So it's no surprise to me when you say cereal's very 80s. I'm like, yes, sugar on a bunch of food that they're saying is a healthy item to start your day with. That is absolutely 1980s.
Well, was it kind of like they started putting like cartoons on
All the things.
boxes? So like
And
it was
prizes in the bottom of the box
Uh-huh.
and all the things like
Anyway,
that. And I'm sure if we did a deep dive into Wheaties, we would see a lot of things that are
Probably.
not great,
But
including
I
sugar
would say it's probably
content, I would imagine.
healthier than like Frosted Flakes.
I
but
guess
anyway.
did you eat Wheaties?
No,
Yeah, I didn't eat
was-
Wheaties either.
it was like Lucky Charms.
I think it's because they said it was good for you. I was like, I don't want that. Give me Lucky Charms. Give me Fruity Pebbles, Lucky Charms,
or
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Cap-
We both know that.
Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch, yes, except for that really tears up your mouth. I never
Ooh,
understood
yeah.
that journey.
Yeah.
But we were in it.
This was pre-vegan, but I'm sure there's dairy in it or butter or something. But they made a Captain Crunch milkshake,
Oh my gosh.
and
Oh my god.
like the kind of like buttery flavor of the cereal.
Oh,
like, got
wait.
into the ice cream.
Someone made a milkshake? Who made that?
It was at Flip Burger
Oh my
in
god.
Atlanta.
I've never even heard.
Yep, Flip Burger. They did a Krispy Kreme milkshake.
Wow.
Where they blended up it was like a donut and a half or whatever, and then they did like a Captain Crunch.
It sounds like they were really on the
They were really on the
cutting
cusp.
edge of the milkshake movement.
And diabetes.
My gosh. Yeah, Captain Crunch, I never understood it tore our mouths up, but yet we were still
But
dedicated.
he was a captain, so you felt like that's authority.
Sure. That's
So
it.
you were like, well, I mean, it's a captain.
So I must
He
eat this
can't,
cereal.
right?
Nothing will go wrong. I'll get the
That
feeling.
little leprechaun. What's his?
What's he bringing
is he
to
a
the
PhD?
table?
Like, no.
But with Captain Crunch, it's like, I will ruin the inside of my mouth. The skin will grow back. It's fine.
I'm supporting our service members.
Okay.
Captain Crunch.
All right. Well, Christmas is Christmasing around here,
It
y'all.
sure is.
Our tree is up. I
Our
am getting
9-foot tree.
9-foot tree. I'm getting ready for a big adventure into 9-foot tree because for the first time in our lives, we have a tall ceiling apartment, which we love and adore.
Mhm.
And I was committed to getting a tree that we had to, stand on each other's shoulders to put the star on, which we did.
We did.
I'm gearing up for a big trip to Michigan to be with family for a lot of the holiday season, because you are white Christmasing.
I am white Christmasing
Yes.
forever and ever. Amen.
Yes, you are. We had we originally thought like, oh, our first Christmas in Chicago, we'll do like all these Chicago-y things and Christmassy things, but really your schedule will not allow for it. So
We're squeezing a few things in, but
I'm taking the dog and I'm heading even further north.
it's just gonna be me and Bean Louise.
And then you'll join me for Christmas, of course. And then we'll be
Christmas.
back in Chicago before Christmas is over, actually.
Yeah.
To
have
celebrate.
2 shows the next day.
To celebrate the last hours of Christmas here in our own home.
Christmas.
Well, we're here to celebrate one heck of a book that was
Mhm.
released earlier this year in September. Big Vegan Flavor, Techniques and 150 Recipes to Master Vegan Cooking by Nisha Vora of Rainbow Plant Life. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at a couple books that are not out yet, but available for pre-order.
Ooh, yes. And this one I'm very excited about. Italian Cooking with Nonna. 80 plus plant-based recipes inspired by classic Italian dishes by Giuseppe Federici. Federici, coming out on January 7th, 2025. This is already released in the UK, but the US release is January 7th. I'm very excited about this because I used to cook with my grandma a lot.
Aw, I love that.
Though we did not call her like Nona. She was Mom.
Okay.
And Pop and grandfather
I
was
think
Pop.
mom is very specific to your family.
It's very specific.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody else
I
say
don't think
that.
I have either.
But anyway, Italian Cooking with Nona is a comforting and delicious collection of authentic plant-based Italian recipes that will delight the taste buds and bring your family together for generations to come. Food and family have always been intertwined and at the center of Giuseppe Federici's life. So when he went vegan, he needed to find a way to cook the flavors of his family. We've all been there. There was only one person who could truly help, and that is Giuseppe's Nonna Mariana Sigarito. It's a good name. Together, they learned how to make the authentic Italian and Sicilian dishes that Nona grew up with. Oh my God, this is like my family. Only using plants just in time.
Except for you've never
share
done
them
this
with you.
You've never tried to veganize anything with your. I guess we've veganized
We
the
veganized a few
pizzelles.
things. The pizzelles. My grandmother's like a rice pudding recipe,
But you're saying this was it's
I mean,
just like you
Sicilian.
growing up with your
Yeah.
got
with
you.
Sicilian
Sorry, I thought you meant
Yeah.
you tried to veganize. I was like, you have not.
No, I've done. There's been a couple. Her Menegotti, but that's like its own thing. I did that a long time ago. But anyway,
Say that again.
Menegotti.
Thank you.
Menegotti. And you got to do this.
Do you mean manicotti?
Yeah, manicotti.
Okay. I kind of want that for dinner now.
I know. It sounds delicious.
Oh.
This beautiful cookbook celebrates rustic Italian home cooking and the joy of plant-based eating, but also the power of family and how food transcends generations and brings us together. 80 plus Italian plant-based recipes. Often when trying to enjoy a plant-based diet, you must skip out on authenticity, not with Italian cooking with Nona. Each recipe is authentically Italian and mindfully crafted to align with plant-based eating.
David, I think I need to make some manicotti now. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. Well, listen, also Giuseppe.
It's pasta filled with something. Like,
oh my gosh.
You can't go wrong.
Just yum. Giuseppe, I just want to say, he is such a sweet potato. I follow his account. He is talented and easy on the eyes, and his grandma is very, very funny. I love, accounts online where it's someone younger with their grandmother and they're talking about food and veganizing. It's a very cute account and fun to follow. Next up is Ellie's Plate, plant-based comfort food made easy. This is coming out January 14th by Ellie Smart. From decadent and delicious plant-based lasagna with creamy bechamel sauce to hot honey halloumi burgers and lemon drizzle cookies. This is a big flavor without compromise and guilt-free eating that benefits you and the planet. We all want to incorporate more plants into our diets and know that variety is key when it comes to our health, but every meal doesn't need to be super loaded. Superfood salad, when what we're really craving is a bowl of steamy pulled pork, air quotes, noodles. That's by Ellie Smart, available for pre-order now. You may know her as Ellie Plate on socials, so if you're a fan, get that pre-order in now. Let's get into a fun fact, shall we? Nisha Vora, our author today, listed in her Get to Know You section on her website that sesame is her favorite ingredient to use. From the straight up sesame seed to tahini, she loves it. So it got me curious. When did sesame become such a staple in vegan cooking?
Well, I have the answer
to
your question. Sesame became prominent in vegan cooking during the 1960s and 70s health food movement. It was valued for its rich flavor and nutritional benefits like calcium and iron. A staple in Middle Eastern, African, and Asian cuisines for centuries, ingredients like tahini and sesame oil were embraced in Western vegan recipes for their versatility. Today, sesame remains a cornerstone of plant-based cooking, from creamy dressings to innovative meat alternatives.
Well, let's tell you a bit about our fabulous author beyond the sesame of it all. Nisha Vora is a vegan chef, food blogger, and content creator. After graduating from Harvard Law School, like it's hard, and working as a lawyer for 4 years, she exchanged her casebooks for cookbooks and launched a career in her dream world of food by creating Rainbow Plant Life, a popular vegan Instagram account, blog, and YouTube channel.
I can't not sing anything from Legally Blonde in my head right now.
I mean,
back in the game, back in the case. Back out of Nisha's way. Today, Dustin interviews Nisha about her new book, Big Vegan Flavor, and it's a gorgeous book. But she has another book as well. In 2009, she released her first book, The Vegan Instant Pot Cookbook, wholesome, indulgent, plant-based recipes. And this continues to be #1 seller on Amazon 5 years later. Has become the go-to for instant pot books for vegans.
Yeah, 2019. That's wild that it's still a #1 bestseller, and that is the Vegan Instant Pot Cookbook.
Well, I think people were doing a lot of cooking at home during that time, so I
Oh,
mean
sure.
that really struck at the perfect time. Get it?
Yeah. Get it? What
I
do you
mean,
mean,
Nisha,
get it?
get it? Like, get it, girl.
Oh, I was like, did you tell me a joke? I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
get
get
it.
it.
I was
Get
like,
it.
if you told me I didn't get it. Yeah, I love that. Plus, I mean, she's very good at writing, as you'll see in this book. And now we have Big Vegan Flavor that came out in September. The instant New York Times bestseller is a groundbreaking and comprehensive vegan flavor Bible with 150 must-make recipes. With more than 2 million devoted fans online, Nisha Vora has become the trusted source for exceptional vegan recipes for the home cook. That's because of her flavor first philosophy, and it's an approach she's honed for nearly a decade, creating plant-based dishes that just plain taste amazing. Labels aside, now she's created an essential, comprehensive guide that codifies the principles of plant-based cooking for the first time. That's a lawyer word. Codify. Codify. From how to coax the most out of your ingredients and how to understand essential flavor pairings to how to achieve impossible to resist, must have more textures, and embrace the myriad of ways vegetables can be enjoyed: roasted, caramelized, braised, pampered in bold marinades and umami-rich sauces, and so much more.
Pampered, like massage.
Yes.
As Nisha demonstrates in this groundbreaking book, the creative possibilities are endless thanks to a rich variety in the plant-based kingdom and the infinite and exciting ways that they are to achieve big flavor. I feel like that should have an echo. Big flavor. This book illuminates not
Try it
only
again. Say it again.
big flavor.
Flavor. Why do you keep going though?
Because it's the
Shouldn't
echo.
it be flavor? So do it again.
Okay, big flavor.
Flavor. Maybe we'll work on it.
Okay, we'll work
workshopping.
This book illuminates not only the how, but the why of these fundamental principles so that anyone can boost their confidence and reach their full plant-savvy potential in the kitchen, whether they like to rotate a few veggie meals a week, or they are an experienced home cook looking for next level wow-worthy meals. With more than 150 globally inspired recipes, easy flavor boosters that add depth or pop to all kinds of dishes, simple swaps for whatever you're craving or have on hand, make ahead tips, and more, Big Flavor is packed with ideas and inspiration.
Big Vegan Flavor is packed with ideas and inspiration. Honestly, I was so inspired by this conversation with Nisha. I'm having a bit of a dip in my energy around food, which I've been open chatting about on this podcast, and talking with her really revived me a bit. And I've got a ways to go to get back to feeling whole within my creativity again, but this was a ray of light in my culinary world these days, so I enjoyed the conversation. A timely and visionary cookbook, Big Vegan Flavor, is destined to become a classic. Here she is to tell us all about her New York Times bestseller. It's Nisha Vora. Creating wildly flavorful recipes that have delighted vegans and non-vegans alike, it's the popular and ridiculously talented creator of the vegan and lifestyle website Rainbow Plant Life. Please welcome to Keep on Cooking, Nisha Vora. Welcome.
Hi, Dustin. Thank you so much for your kind words and for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to dive right into your icebreaker question. So, what's one thing you forget to do regularly?
Oh, that's easy. Take my vitamins.
You just nailed it. I have a different answer, but that's probably, I'm looking at them right over there right now, actually. As you said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot to take my vitamins today. Yeah, I guess I would think, since we're both saying that, we're probably not alone on that. I think a lot of people might.
It is so hard. Like, I've tried so many methods. I've tried, habit stacking. I've tried reminders. It's just like the one thing that works sometimes is just I bought a new fancy pill organizer case.
That's what I did.
And it's like pretty, so I look at it more. But we're still at like a 65% success rate.
I think that's probably where I'm at, but I bought the case for the same reason. And it's this like sleek pill case that looks really cute. And then I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh yeah, I got to do that. And then the next day I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot. Well, today I got to do it. And it's the same thing. On mine, what I put is I'll go walk my dog and then I use the last bag, his last poo bag on his thing. And then I'm always like, okay, you got to change this when you get upstairs, or else you're going to come down here the next time and you're going to be out of luck. And that's one that I often forget regularly. So I'll do better. I'll do better. I
Keep
don't leave
telling
it.
yourself that.
Yes, I don't leave it around laying around in the neighborhood, everybody. I come back up, I grab a bag, I go down, pick up his business. I just want everyone to know that in my neighborhood, if anyone's listening. Well, so Nisha, we are going to get into this book. Big. Let's see if I can hold it up here. Big vegan flavor techniques and 150 recipes to master vegan cooking. That also happens to be one heck of a large, gorgeous, fantastic book. But before we get into that, can you tell us about your history a bit? When did you start cooking and when did it all go vegan for you?
Sure. So I fell in love with cooking as a teenager. I just wanted to start cooking for myself. This is when the Food Network started to take off with all their different shows in the early 2000s. And my dad would, DVR them for me, and I'd watch them after school and in the mornings before school. And I'd spend my weekends at Barnes and Noble reading cookbooks. And so it
Yeah.
was just something that I immediately gravitated towards and really approached from a perspective of learning more so than like actual cooking. And that is very much my personality. Like I was very studious and I loved school. And so it was almost like I wanted to learn a new subject that wasn't taught in school.
Yeah.
And then I started putting it into practice. And throughout college and law school, I cooked for friends all the time. And they were always blown away by, the things that I was making, but it always just felt like a creative hobby, never something that could be a career. As I mentioned, I went to law school, I became a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 4 years into practicing law, I was feeling very anxious and unhappy with my work and started to just see like kind of what practices in my health and happiness routine I could shift and try to feel better. And I felt like I was experiencing kind of this weightiness when I would eat meat. Not like I felt like heavy as in like I was gaining weight. It was just like I felt weighed down, if that makes sense, energy
Yeah.
wise. And so I cut out meat for a little bit, started to feel more energetic. And then after a couple months, I was like, now that I'm not eating meat, I am more curious about like where does our food come from? What is going into my food? And so I watched one documentary when my partner went out of town one week for work, Food Inc. And then I was just like kind of blown away by what goes into food production and animal agriculture in this country. And then I watched 8, 9 more documentaries over the course of a couple nights. And
Yeah.
so after that binge, I was like, okay, I'm definitely not eating any animal products anymore. I know what we do to animals. I know what
Yeah.
happens to the environment as a result of this massive agribusiness. And so, yeah, I went vegan over the course of a few nights.
Wow. It's always amazing to hear how it transitioned for people. Like what was the thing that really sort of like pushed it over the edge for them? And I love that documentaries can be so powerful for some people. And we have you recommended any to people where they have then watched it and then you hear from them later and they're like, oh gosh, that worked. I'm going vegan as well.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
The one that I think resonates with the majority of people who are maybe not even thinking that they'll go vegan is The Game Changers. That's not
Yeah.
one I watched initially because I had already been vegan before I
Mm-hmm.
saw that one. And then Earthlings, it's really painful. And I think most people are not open to watching that, but the ones that
Yeah.
are willing to give it a go, I think it's really hard to ignore.
Yeah, yeah, and the route you went down too of kind of like seeing one and then you're like, well, I'm doubling down now. I want to know more information. I think that's very interesting. I don't know if I actually I've spoken to people who have gone down that path, but you said 9? You watched 9, did you say?
My partner
Wow.
went out of town for like 3 nights, and I was like, "Okay, how many hours do
This
I
is the
have before
time.
I need to
Yep.
go to bed?"
Yep.
And yeah, he came home from his trip and he's like, "Honey, I'm home." And I was like, "Honey, I'm vegan." And he was like, "Wait, what?"
It's like, oh gosh, what I left. I'm not leaving again. What happened?
Exactly. He said, "I'm never leaving again." And he's super supportive, fully on board now, but the initial shock of like, I was gone for 3 days. How did this
Yes.
happen?
Well, so lawyer to online food creator with Rainbow Plant Life. So how did that all happen? How did it come to be?
Yeah, so around the same time, this was in 2016 when I decided to go vegetarian and then eventually vegan. When I went vegetarian, I kind of inspired me to just get back into cooking anyways. I, again, had always loved cooking. My first job as a lawyer, I worked at a big law firm on Wall Street. I had no time to cook because I was constantly at the office.
Mhm.
My second job, I worked in nonprofit. So I did have more free time. So I was trying to find a way to get back into cooking and to use my free time to do that. And so I just started documenting what I was cooking, what I was eating, really simple things, and posting it to Instagram. This was back in the day where you just posted one square photo. It was so
Yeah,
simple.
or Instagram was just posting stuff. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get it.
And it started to take off. People started to kind of respond. I think veganism was still quite niche back then. And so there was a real hunger for this kind of information. And I found that I was really good at sharing information about this stuff. And as I alluded to earlier, I was really anxious and miserable in my career
Mhm.
as a lawyer for a variety of reasons.
Sure.
And I think once I got to like, I don't know, maybe 50,000 followers, I was like, maybe I can turn this into a job of some sort. This is before the influencer economy, before I even knew what the term influencer was. Uh,
Sure.
so I used my Instagram kind of as a resume to apply to food startups in New York City where I lived at the time. And then I got a job at a vegan food startup in New York City where I did social media marketing, I did food photography, I did recipe development, I did copywriting, like, all the different
Wow.
hats. And in the evenings after work, in the mornings before work, on the weekends, I was building Rainbow Plant Life as my side hustle. And I side hustled for 2.5 years and then ultimately decided, okay, I can't do both. And
Yeah.
I decided to go full time for myself about 5 years ago.
Wow, what a journey to that. And it's paid off. And of course, your first book, The Vegan Instant Pot Cookbook, Wholesome, Indulgent, Plant-Based Recipes, has been a huge success. And that came out in 2019. So what would you say was a big thing you learned from writing the first one that you took with you when you went into writing Big Vegan Flavor?
I definitely wanted to have more time with the book. So
Yes.
the
Yes.
first book, it's much smaller in scope and scale, as you probably
Yes.
know.
Yes.
But it was also a project that the publisher approached me with, and they really
Mhm.
wanted to publish it early, or not early, but soon, because the
Yeah.
Instant Pot was gaining in popularity and they felt like there wasn't a really great, beautiful, comprehensive Instant Pot cookbook that was exclusively vegan. They wanted it to come out really soon. And I think I only had 5.5 months to develop, test the recipes, photograph the recipes, write the whole book, which is just bananas. I know you've written cookbooks and it's
And
a
I've
bananas
had
timeline.
crazy timelines too. I get it. It's wild.
And so I definitely was like, I want to be more intentional and have more time. I'm
Yeah.
proud of that book, but if I could go back, I would have liked to do more testing and
Sure.
do more research and, all those things. So this book probably is on the other extreme of things. Like,
Yeah.
took a very long, very long time to put together, but that was definitely one lesson I learned.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked for more time and you got more time too. I want every author, specifically, I want every cookbook author to have all the time they want to write a book, because there's so much that goes when you're doing it right. There's so much that goes into it. The testing primarily. It's like you don't always just test and it works out. Sometimes
Yes.
it's just that like, what is that quarter teaspoon of something that's just going to make this perfect. So I get it. Well, before we get into the book, I ask all of my first time guests, what was your first vegan cookbook that you owned, a cookbook you turned to again and again when you went vegan and started cooking?
Ooh, that's a good question. I will say Isa Chandra Moskowitz Fun Times cookbook. It came
Nice.
out right around the time I went vegan. And I don't know if I cooked from it so much, but I like would read it and like look through
Yeah.
it so much and get inspiration because it's organized by holidays. And I think the way I fell in love with cooking to begin with when I was a teenager was cooking for friends and family. We would have these feasts with my best friend's family, and we would just essentially have like mini Thanksgiving dinners
Yeah.
whenever we wanted.
Yeah.
So it was really like falling in love with cooking through the form of entertaining and through the form of cooking for others. And so I really loved that cookbook of just so many ideas for cooking for the purpose of entertaining and to feed your family and
Yeah.
friends.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Well, we are going to start our adventure. You've been through it, but we're going to go through it together. We're going to start our adventure into Big Vegan Flavor Techniques and 150 Recipes to Master Vegan Cooking. So, the introduction empowers the home cook with your mission to educate, energize, and excite cooks who are interested in eating more plants. From the plant curious to full fledged vegans, you touch on your approach to vegan cooking. So, what is your personal approach to vegan cooking?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say one of the guiding principles for me is flavor first. When I first went vegan 8 years ago now, I tried to do what I think a lot of people do is focus on how can I fit as many vegetables as possible into this dish. And the problem was that I was eating food that was pretty bland. And it wasn't until I started focusing on flavor as the primary criterion that the
Hmm.
food I started to make went from okay to genuinely incredible and
Yeah.
so much better than what I was making before I went vegan. So these days, whether I'm cooking tofu or cauliflower, I'm really thinking about how can I extract as much flavor from that particular ingredient because I want that cauliflower, let's say, to be a really delicious cauliflower. I don't want to hide it in a stir fry with 6 other vegetables. Like, I want you
Yeah.
to really enjoy it. I'd say another principle for me that guides kind of my approach is leading into the creativity. Again, I think I alluded to this before, but before I went vegan, the way I cooked was so conventional. It's like a slab of chicken breast or some other animal protein with a carby side and a vegetable side and just rotating some variation of that. And without the animal protein being the center of the plate, the thing that guides your decisions, I've discovered this huge other world of more creative options. And so I really love leaning into that creativity. Like, I don't need to have my decisions dictated by, okay, I have this animal protein. Like, what can I pair with it? So I really try to lean into that creativity because it's so fun.
I love that. Yeah, you're so correct. The creative aspect of vegan cooking is really what is, and you see great books like this where there's and y'all, we're gonna get into it. There's so many great things in here. And you go out to vegan restaurants these days, and some of them just really have such a handle on that creativity and they take advantage of it. It's so fun to see. You go on to note in here what the home cook will find in this book in regards to ingredient notes, tips, how to use flavor boosters, sauces, and dressings to develop the flavor. You've got suggestions on turning lighter recipes into full meals, make ahead tips, easy variations and swaps to tailor recipes to our liking. And you also give allergen markers and recommended substitutions in many cases. And then you get into mastering vegan cooking. You talk about basic principles like using the freshest ingredients you can find and afford, layering flavors, choosing the right salt, seasoning often, and tasting as you go. So let's expand on salt. Please tell our listeners how you use salt in your cooking.
Oh, that's like the $1,000,000 question.
Hey.
I think of salt as the one ingredient that makes food taste more like food. It makes a tomato taste more like a tomato. It makes a cauliflower taste more like a cauliflower. And I know that in some circles in the plant based world, there's a hesitance to use salt or to use it generously. But my point of view is that if using salt at various parts of the cooking process is going to get you to enjoy broccoli, it's going to get you to enjoy fennel. It's going to get you to enjoy beans and lentils and whole grains. And like, I'm all for it. Like, I want you to enjoy home cooked food made with primarily whole foods. And I really think that salt can help you achieve that. The other thing I think that can help you achieve that is olive oil, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I try to season at different stages of the cooking process because I want you to end up with a well-seasoned dish, not an over salty dish or an undersalt or not an over salty dish or an under salty dish.
Yeah.
I think that if you wait to salt to the end, it can either be over salty or under salty, or it can be salty but not like you don't have that depth of flavor. And
Mhm.
when you add it at different stages, you build a little bit of flavor, a new layer of flavor every time.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Well, and then you go into the in depth about maximizing flavor. What's one tip you can give listeners right now on maximizing flavor?
Ooh, oh gosh, I feel like I have to study my own book.
Well, you give us such great information. It's got to be hard to pick like one
Just
thing that
pick
you
one.
said. Yeah.
So I would say when you have the time, it doesn't have to be all every meal you make, but to experiment with whole spices, to lean into using those more often
Mm,
when you can, because you will just get such a bigger flavor bang for your buck.
yeah.
Whole spices are fresher because they have these protective seed coatings. And so you just get more flavor, you get
Yeah.
more depth. And when you toast them, either in a dry pan or in a pan with some oil, which is referred to as blooming spices, it just takes your dish to the next level. And if you are making like a 15-minute recipe, it's a Tuesday night, you're busy,
Yeah.
fine, don't worry about
Sure.
it. But when you have a few extra minutes, it doesn't take that much more time. When you have a few extra minutes, really lean into that because
Yeah.
it can really add that je ne sais quoi to your dish and take it to that next level.
Oh, yes, we love that je ne sais quoi. And I love that you're encouraging this, but then you're also telling people, and I feel this is a tone throughout the book, which I appreciate and I love, lean into the whole spices, but also if like pick your time wisely. If you're making a quick meal on Tuesday night, maybe that's not the right time. So then you get into you touch on umami, tangy, tart, and sour sources of acid. So what's a type of acid you use more frequently than others?
More frequently in my cooking or more frequently than other cooks? Sorry.
In your
Okay.
cooking. Yeah.
Okay.
What's like a favorite
Uh,
acid of yours?
okay. I'll give you two. One is like super common. Anyone can get it anywhere. Lemons. Lemon juice is just so
Yeah.
versatile.
I
It
love
works in so many cuisines and it just adds so much and you can buy it anywhere. Another one that I use not like every day by any means, but a little bit more often than I think most people do that is super fun is pomegranate molasses. It's used often in Middle Eastern cooking, Persian
Ooh.
cooking, and it's basically just pomegranate juice from pomegranate seeds boiled down until it's super syrupy. So it's got the consistency of somewhere between a agave and a honey. And it is kind of mouth puckeringly tart and it's
Mhm.
so fun. So I use it in a couple different ways. I'll use it in salad dressings occasionally. I'll use it in tahini sauces. There's a recipe in the book for pomegranate glazed tofu. So you get this like super tart, slightly sweet caramelized coating on the tofu. So I would really encourage folks to seek it out if you're feeling like you're looking for a new ingredient to cook with. You're feeling a little adventurous.
Yes, yes. And you get into talking about sugars and spices and herbs and easy ways for home cooks to start using fresh herbs. And when we're looking at spice too, you give some quick tips on decreasing because I love you give an overview of spices in here, but then you're also again giving the reader and the home cook some grace. You're like sometimes we overspice things, but there are some things you can do to fix it. If someone overspices their dish, what's something they could maybe try and do to save that dish?
So it depends on what you're making. If you're making something with liquid, like a soup or a curry, you can always add more liquid if it's as long as you're not going to water it down too much. If you have potatoes on hand, they are going to absorb some of that, just the starchiness of a potato. So if you're making, let's say, a soup or a curry, most of those recipes would be fine if you added in like a potato, like just peel and dice it and kind of let it simmer in the soup or the curry or microwave it so that it cooks quickly, whatever you want. um, Other starches will help. So like again, if you're making a curry, you can serve it with white rice and that's going to kind of mitigate or lessen the spiciness. um, One thing I would say is sugar you can use to kind of balance some spiciness, but don't overdo it. Obviously, if you're making a savory dish, you don't want to add too much sugar because that will ruin the flavor. Creamy stuff is also a good option. So if you have some plant-based sour cream or plant-based yogurt, there's a reason in Indian cooking why we serve yogurt with almost everything because we got a lot of chilies, we
Mhm.
got a lot of heat, and the yogurt is such a nice cooling tart balance. So I always have vegan yogurt on hand, and that definitely comes in handy when I've maybe been a little too generous with the chili peppers.
That's great. You get into cooking with fats in here. You also talk about balancing and pairing flavors. And you go over the goods in here for contrasting and flavor pairings with sweet and sour, sweet and salty, sweet and spicy, sweet and bitter, salty and bitter, sour and salty, and sour and spicy. And then you talk about creating irresistible textures. Sometimes I hear from non-vegans, oh, I didn't like it. It was the texture, which just when someone says that, I'm like, okay, well, what is a surefire tip you can give to our listeners about creating irresistible textures?
So in the book, I talk about how to create 3 or 4 of our favorite textures: creamy, crispy, and crunchy, which is they're different, so I'm counting them as like 1 or 2 depending on how you interpret
Sure.
it,
Yeah.
and chewy.
Yep.
And so there's a whole list of foods and tips on how to incorporate them into your cooking. I would say one easy tip that will add fun texture to a lot of your meals is to like have a couple of crunchy toppers in your pantry, and there's lots of recipes in the
Mm.
book. And that's not going to necessarily save a dish that you hate the texture of, but it's going to add fun texture to something that might be a little boring. So, for instance, there are recipes in the book that basically just take nuts and seeds and sometimes panko or sometimes garlic, and you just kind of crisp them up in a hot pan with olive oil. And you just get this like fun little magical crunchy dust that you can put on a salad, on a soup, on a grain bowl, on a rice bowl, on noodles. And it just adds that nice textural contrast that I think can be often missing in those kinds of dishes.
Oh, I think that's a great tip, a great way to get some texture in there. That's really enjoyable too and satisfying. Like that crunch in the is so satisfying. The last section in Mastering Vegan Cooking in the front matter of the book is Conquering Your Kitchen. And this you go over all the basics and essentials for cooking equipment and tools, stocking the pantry. You give a great guide on foods that are optimal for storage as well, which I love that. But most importantly in this section, you have some great bullet points that I think every book should come with on a pull-out sheet that people can pull out of the book and put it on their fridge. These bullet points are, listeners, are you ready? Write it down. Don't write it down. Buy the book. Buy the book. It's all in there. Cook with all of your senses. Read through the recipe first. I'm going to say that one again for everyone in the back. Read
Mhm.
through the recipe first. A digital scale is your best friend. Don't be afraid to adjust the heat. Season and taste as you go. Take shortcuts if you need, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Love all of that. So now we're going to dive into some recipes. Okay. Our first section is building block recipes. So, what are one of the building block recipes for you in here that you think might serve as one of the best multi purpose recipes in this section?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly explain what I mean by building blocks in case listeners aren't familiar with that concept. But building blocks are categories of food, not specific types of meals or dishes. They're not complete meals. It's a category of food like a condiment, a protein, a grain,
Mm-hmm.
a vegetable. And so there are 4 chapters in the book that correspond to those building blocks. And the idea is that you can mix and match different building blocks to make complete meals. And my favorite condiment in the book would be the homemade Chinese chili crisp
Yep.
in chapter
Yes.
5. If you've had store-bought Chinese chili crisp, it's delicious. This version just takes it up like 10 notches. It
Yeah.
is the most intensely savory, crunchy, spicy, slightly sweet, slightly tangy condiment. It has every flavor profile you want, and it's got nice crunch, and you can put it on so many things. You can put it on rice, you can put it on noodles, you can put it on a cucumber salad, you can put it on tofu scramble, you can put
Mm-hmm.
it sometimes I just have 1, 2 minutes to make lunch, and it's literally leftover rice,
Yeah.
pre-baked tofu from the store, and chili crisp, and I'm like, "This is still pretty good."
Yeah.
So it does take a little bit of work to make, and the ingredient list isn't super short, but it will last in your fridge for, like, 6 months, and it will
Mm-hmm.
truly make everything taste better.
Oh, I love it already. I mean, it just sounds so good, anyways. But then all the stuff you're talking about with it too. Oh, so good. You've got the All Hail Caesar dressing, preserved lemons, outrageously good red softs, preserved lemon vinaigrette, pomegranate molasses vinaigrette. Already that pomegranate molasses popping up, which I had not heard of, and I want to buy some immediately after you talked about it. A grapefruit shallot vinaigrette, fried capers, quick pickled vegetables, and tomato shallot butter. Please tell us more about this tomato shallot butter.
It is so simple. The reason I called it shallot or tomato shallot butter instead of sauce is because it, like, tastes like butter, which is kind of crazy because the main ingredients are cherry tomatoes and
Yeah.
shallots and garlic. And it's super simple. You just take your shallots, garlic, cherry tomatoes, pour them or drizzle them with olive oil, some salt and pepper, thyme, put that in the oven for 25, 30 minutes. Everything gets nice and soft and caramelized, and all the natural sugars come out of the vegetables. And then you puree it with some olive oil and vegan butter. So it does have some sort
Sure.
of butter in it,
A
but
little butter in there. Yeah.
you can use olive oil if you want.
Sure.
And it's got this really lovely sweet background, but also a lot of savoriness from the tomatoes and the shallots. And it's great with pasta, but it's also really, really good on like toasted or grilled bread that you've rubbed with garlic. And yeah, you can't go wrong with it.
Oh, it sounds so good. You've got Korean barbecue sauce in here, buttery caper pine nut dressing, mint pistachio pesto, everybody. Green goddess dressing. So many great things. Do you have a favorite dressing in this section?
A favorite dressing for salads?
Yeah. Pick a favorite child is what I'm asking you to do
Oh,
here.
yes. That is definitely a difficult question. I will say the Caesar only because I have tried so many Caesar dressings
Yeah.
that have just been very disappointing. And this is the first one where I was like, oh, this is what
Mhm.
I was missing. Like
Yep.
from having gone vegan, 8 years ago, what I remember about Caesar dressing, what my non-vegan testers have told me,
Yeah.
what traditional Caesar dressing tastes like.
Yep.
So I'm really proud of that one. I do, try to vary my salad dressings all the time so that I don't get bored, but that's one that I really think hits.
I love a good Caesar salad dressing. I will make this. I love trying people's different and sometimes like some have different elements that other ones don't, but like they're different. They're good for different reasons even. And I'm like, I don't even know what a non-vegan Caesar dressing tastes like now. So I love that you had non-vegan testers that were testing it and they're like, no, this one hits. It's good. I think I'm into this pistachio butter. 2 simple ingredients,
Oh,
everybody. Pistachios and seed salt. I know it's going to be nutty, buttery, and irresistible. So good. We got there's a whipped feta in here, tofu, ricotta, and fermented cashew cheese. And you've got some salad toppers in here, it looks like, with cheesy crunchies and smoky seed sprinkles. And then you wrap things up with some crispy delights like Indian peanut crunchies, crispy fennel spiced crumbs, and classic torn croutons. This takes us into, and that's all those great textures we were talking about. You just nailed it all there. And this takes us into easy swap proteins. So, what is your hands down favorite protein recipe in this section?
hands down favorite would be the sticky coconut milk braised tofu
Mm,
on page 278. It
love
is
it.
a dream. It's you pan fry some tofu squares and then you braise them in a mixture of coconut milk and soy sauce and a little bit of sugar and some Thai aromatics like lemongrass. And it comes out so sticky and rich, and it kind of just has the most intensely savory sauce that you want to just like drizzle all over your rice. And it's
Yes.
really good.
And it looks so good. I'm holding it up now for anyone who's watching. If you're listening, you can't see it, but I'm holding it up to the screen. It just looks so delicious. And what would a runner-up be to this one for the protein recipes?
I'm obsessed with tofu, so it'll be another tofu
Same.
recipe.
Same. I'm here for it. Give it to
It's
me.
the super savory grated tofu on page 281. It's also called I Can't Believe It's Not Chicken because several of my testers said, I can't believe that's not chicken. And this one is definitely a weeknight friendly one. That's like a 20, 30-minute deal. And it's
Great.
super firm tofu that you grate with a box grater. You pan fry it so it gets like chewy and crispy. And you add this 5-ingredient, really savory sauce that uses Chinese black vinegar and soy sauce. Chinese black
Mm.
vinegar is one of my other favorite ingredients, kind of like pomegranate molasses. Not super common, but you can buy anything online these days, or if you have an Asian grocery store.
Yeah.
It's fermented, so it's funky. It's really kind of pungent and just very unique, and it really brings
Mhm.
a little extra kick to the dish.
Oh, so good. And in this section, we've also got wildly crunchy cornmeal beans, marinated chickpeas, edamame salad with those chili crisp, and there's saucy black beans and sofrito, crispy lentils, spiced lentil salad with fresh herbs, creamy tahini lentils with crispy spiced garlic. And then you get into basic tofu cuts like cubes, squares, slabs, nuggets, and grated. So we've talked about 2 different cuts already, but like, is there a cut you prefer out of all of them?
I mean, it really depends on like what texture I'm going for, the type of dish, but one that I really like using are the nuggets. It's basically you just tear
Mm,
tofu into chunks as opposed to cubes. I use cubes. I like cubes, but when you tear the tofu into chunks, you get more surface area. So if you're pan frying it, let's say you're going to be able to crisp up more sides of the tofu than with a cube. So you just get better texture and it absorbs any other flavors that are in the pan, whether you're using a sauce or just salt and pepper and some spices. So it definitely lends itself to more flavorful, crunchier tofu.
love it. And I had written down here that it was later in my notes. You already talked about it though, but I want to try that sticky coconut braised tofu. I wrote it down. Yeah,
Such a
yeah,
treat.
yeah. Yes. And also this baked tofu and kale and tomato and chipotle sauce looks so good. So this takes us into tempeh. So do you steam your tempeh?
I do if I am keeping the slices on the larger side, but as I write in the book, I prefer smaller cuts of tempeh.
Uh-huh.
And tempeh can be naturally bitter, right? That's why we steam it sometimes. I have found that if you cut tempeh into smaller pieces, like the thin slices or the crumbles or the matchsticks that you see on page $2.90. And if you pair it with a sauce that naturally balances bitter flavors, like something that's tart, that's something that's a little sweet, something that's quite savory, I don't need to steam it. So that's generally my approach to doing it. On the rare occasion I'm not doing both of those things, I will steam it.
And what do you have a favorite preparation of tempeh from here?
I really love crumbling it or doing the really thin matchsticks because when you pan fry them, they get super crispy and it kind of removes that dry texture from tempeh that I think a lot of people probably don't like. And so I just get like crispy tempeh nuggets basically out of it. And I'm like, oh, I'm eating a fermented high protein, high fiber food, but it's like nice and crispy. So it's delightful.
I love it. You've got a section that gets into it using recipes from the book to create crunchy protein and grain bowls. If you could pick one of these variations right now, which one would it be?
Ooh, excellent question. I will have to say just one. Okay.
You can give a couple favorites. I'm fine with that.
I'm going to go with number 3, the masala baked tofu with basmati rice paired
Yes.
with the spicy mint and cilantro sauce and roasted peanuts plus fresh mint and cilantro. You
Love
get
it.
like a little bit of the Indian flavors that I grew up
Yeah.
with, but in like more of a Western style meal
Uh-huh.
that's a bit more weeknight friendly. So I'll go with that one. But there's
Oh.
also number 1 that features the chili crisp and the crispy sesame baked tofu, which
Oh,
would be
you can
number
say
2.
it. What's the number one then? Yeah.
The first option on the page is you do brown rice or white rice with the crispy sesame baked tofu, which is this lovely baked tofu that has crispy sesame seeds and panko. And then you pair it with the Chinese chili crisp, which we've already talked about. And it says carrots, sauteed snap peas, green beans, kind of whatever vegetable you have
Yeah.
on hand. And then you finish with roasted sesame seeds and scallions.
We'll probably talk about the chili crisp again, I would imagine, because they're just, they're a superstar. I want the barbecue roasted chickpeas with throwback ranch dressing, quinoa
Ooh,
romaine,
okay.
crushed tortilla chips, and charred corn kernels, please. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Okay.
Takes us into the next section, which is grains. Of course, you start the section out giving everyone a thorough look at preparing various grains. And I think I have my eye on the buttery brown rice with warm spices. I'm pretty simple at my core here, and this just sounds so comforting to me. What's one of your favorite grain recipes?
It's funny that you mentioned that as a simple recipe because that recipe probably took me 20 times to get right because there were just so many various factors of like, why won't the brown rice cook through? And we went through this
Sure.
whole rigmarole. That's not a word. We went through this whole process of trying to nail down why wouldn't it cook through. And we ultimately found out that cooking the rice in the oven with salt was kind of preventing it from cooking through. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. Huh. Well, now you did the work for me, so it will be easy for me. See?
The next recipe, the rosemary farotto with cheesy pine nuts, is a favorite. It's like a perfect
Mm.
Thanksgiving dish. It's gives you the creaminess of traditional risotto, but with a whole grain, and
Yeah.
it's got that really nice savoriness from nutritional yeast. It's got some richness from olive oil, but it's not, in the way that classic risotto can be a little bit heavy. It's not heavy. You can eat a fair amount and be like, wow, I don't
Yeah.
feel like I'm eating risotto.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, and some honorable mentions in here, the crispy quinoa salad with savory herbed almonds, creamy baked wild rice and carrots, lemongrass ginger rice and pearl couscous, and chickpea salad with preserved lemon. I love seeing the way the preserved lemon pops up throughout this book. It makes me so happy. Our next section here is the everyday veggie. So for the home cook who just bought this book and they're seeking a way to get more veggies into their daily diet, what is the first recipe you would tell them to make from this section?
I would say the quick roasted cauliflower on page 342,
Mm.
cauliflower, olive oil, salt, and pepper. It literally could not be simpler. And you'll be shocked by how delicious just those 4 ingredients can be in a super hot oven. And it takes like 20-ish minutes to roast.
Yeah.
It's also incredibly quick. And I think every home cook should know how to make a good roasted cauliflower. But yeah, every recipe in this chapter is meant to be a simple vegetable. There is a
Yeah.
fancier vegetable chapter we'll get to. But they're meant to be simple so that if you already have your condiment or you already have your protein and you just want a simple vegetable to pair with it, these are your options.
Yes, yes. And it's so true with the cauliflower you do that and it seems like minimal ingredients, but it's like all you need. Like sometimes simple is best, right? Some other great ones in here. We got spice roasted whole carrots, jammy zucchini, garlicky kale, lemon garlic, Brussels sprouts with rosemary, roasted butternut wedges, jammy roasted eggplant, collard greens with sesame miso cream. And you have a great midsection in here that shows the home cook how to use chapter 5 through 8 for meal planning, which is always so helpful to the home cook. And then we get into part 3, wow worthy meals. We're already blown away by this book. I think all the listeners can agree with me at this point. So I can only imagine what we have in store when it comes to wow worthy meals. Looking first at big personality salads. What is one of these in here that has the biggest personality, gives us the most wow factor in your opinion?
The most wow factor, I would say maybe the fancy Caesar salad. It has that super, super savory Caesar dressing we talked about. It has these cheesy crunchies, which you called out earlier, which have like the flavor profile of a super savory cheese, but in a crunchy form. There's the croutons, there's, just the whole package. It's fancy. There's multiple components, but you can make pretty much everything ahead of time and assemble it on the day of. And it is definitely going to give you that classic Caesar salad experience, but elevated.
The wow factor. And what are those cheesy crunchies made out of then?
Cashews and nutritional yeast, and I think olives. There's olives and a little bit of vinegar, or you can use like pickle juice or olive brine to get some of that tang in
I
there.
was gonna say you're getting some of that tang in with the olives. I love that. Well, I'm loving the look of this creamy and crunchy beet salad with
Mm.
crispy fennel and crumbs, and the spicy, crunchy kale salad with preserved lemon vinaigrette. I love seeing that get put used again, and I can't move on without mentioning the garlicky asparagus and beans with lemon infused olive oil, and also the Indian spice charred corn salad. Can you tell me more about that one?
The Indian spice charred corn salad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one I dedicated to my dad. He is the
Love.
master of corn salads. He makes one every summer, multiple probably every summer, and he's always doing different flavor variations. So the head note is devoted to him. It's like a very sweet, sentimental, probably the only
Yeah.
sentimental head note in the book. Uh, and so
He
this
he
one's
earned it. He earned it.
Yeah, this one's an Indian spice one again in honor my parents are Indian. Uh, and it's got some simple Indian spices, cumin, coriander, cardamom, garam masala, and fresh herbs, mint and cilantro. And you char the corn in a cast iron skillet so you get a little bit of that smokiness that complements the sweetness and makes it more complex. And you toss it with the fresh herbs and the spices and a lot of lemon juice and a little bit of olive oil. So it's tangy and bright and well spiced and just really fresh and fun.
Well-rounded, it sounds like. And you talked about there being a fancy vegetable section earlier on, and now we're getting there. Chapter 10, vegetables are the main event is the name of it, with citrus braised fennel with white beans, buttery charred cabbage, and spiced tomatoes with tahini, maple roasted squash, and chickpeas with mint pistachio. Every time I see that mint pistachio
It's so
pesto, I
good.
start drooling. I'm like, what? And what is a recipe from here that you know will wow the crowd when you bring it to the table?
Hopefully all of them, but
You're like, that
uh,
is the point after all.
I will say the one of the recipes that's been really popular with readers is the maple roasted squash and chickpeas with mint pistachio pesto. I think it's like fall right now. Everyone's really leaning into the winter
Yeah.
squash. What I love about this recipe is instead of kind of what I think is a traditional preparation for squash is to like cut into cubes. I slice it really thinly and I toss it with olive oil, maple syrup, and salt and pepper. And when you put that in a hot oven, it kind of crisps up. So you get like a crisp, chewy texture instead of just like a soft, tender texture. And again, we're all about the texture and trying to make things fun. And then you plate it over that mint pistachio pesto, which is herby and a little spicy and tangy and a little sweet. And there's also chickpeas in there that you roast at the same time as a squash. So you can use it as a main dish or as a side dish. And then optionally, you can shower everything with some of the homemade dukkha.
Yes. And then we've also got these crispy smashed potatoes with lots of saucy options. So please delight us with a little more information about those.
So my favorite form of a potato is a crispy smashed potato. I've
Oh,
tried
rightfully
basically all the
so.
potato forms. That one's my favorite. And it's so simple. Like you get so much value for the very little work you have to do. And I wanted to be able to give you options for how to serve it instead of just plain. So there's a chart on page 409 that gives you how to use all of those sauces we talked about earlier in chapter 5 to kind of create a meal out of this, or like a side dish that you want to share with others when you're entertaining. So there's a couple options for you to choose from. One of the ones that you would probably like, based on what you said earlier, is to pair the crispy smashed potatoes with a throwback ranch dressing, the barbecue roasted chickpeas, and some chives.
Yeah.
And then it's like you've got a little bit of protein, you've got your creamy sauce. So it's just, you can scoop, you can shovel. It's a good time for everyone.
So good. Oh, I love it. I love whenever I see crispy smashed potatoes. That just makes me so happy. Well, now we get into a chapter that is my love language, weekend brunch. Is there anything else that is more joyful than a weekend brunch? So, Nisha, you're having guests over for brunch this weekend. What would the menu look like that you would make from this chapter for brunch?
I guess it depends on how many people I'm having over.
Okay.
And I would probably ask them, are you a sweet or savory person? If I'm entertaining like
Ooh,
more than 4 people, I'll probably do one sweet and one savory.
okay.
I'm typically a savory brunch person. So I would do maybe the scrambled shakshuka, which is on the cover.
Okay.
It's all the flavors you love in shakshuka, but like again, dialed up to 10. It's got whole spices, it's got harissa, it's got vegan feta, it's got Aleppo pepper, it's got preserved lemon. It's like your gourmet shakshuka.
Oh,
So if I want people to fall in love with tofu without realizing they're eating tofu, I would make that. If it's just me and my partner, or maybe like 2 or 3 people, I might do the chickpea pancake with sesame greens. That's a super fun one where you get like this super savory, crispy pancake essentially, but it's made from chickpea flour. It's light, but very, very fun.
yes, I just invited myself over. I'll see you then. We got carrot locks in here, mushroom bacon, brunch tacos, dinner style buttermilk waffles, and French toast casserole with black sesame butter, and a cheesy herb bread pudding with caramelized leeks. And chapter 12 takes us to next level dinners, starting off with spicy noodle stir fry with salt and pepper tofu and a Malaysian curry soup. My mouth is watering from all of this. What is a recipe or two for you in here that you love to use to take things to the next level?
Ooh, that's a good question. So the dinners chapter is broken up into 4 types of dinners. There's noodles and stir fries, there's curries and stews, there's delicious carby things, and then there's magical mushrooms.
Mm,
So a lot to choose from. I would say if I want to take things over the top, which is always, but one of the favorites is the sexy skillet lasagna, because I think lasagna, everyone like kind of likes lasagna, but I don't know if it ever like blows you away. Like it's like mom's lasagna, like,
sure,
it's good,
sure.
but this is like one of those extra lasagnas. It's baked in a cast iron skillet, so you have crunchy edges all around, which the best piece is.
Yeah.
There's that outrageously good red sauce you mentioned earlier that's incredibly savory. There's the homemade whipped ricotta. There's some vegan sausage. I don't cook with that often, but that's one of the recipes that uses it.
Yeah.
So it's just like a super savory lasagna that even if you love meat, you are going to absolutely dive into.
Wow. Is there something from this section for next level dinners that your testers were just like unanimously, your testers across the board were like, this one?
The tofu 65 is super fun. It is chicken 65 is a popular Indian dish in particularly southern India. It's what I kind of describe to people as like tastes like Indian popcorn chicken.
Okay.
And you can get the same results with tofu, but using a couple little techniques. So the tofu gets, soft and chewy on the inside, but like deeply crunchy on the outside. And there's all these warming Indian spices, and it is such a treat.
Oh, I love it. And we got lots of great ones in here. Sweet and sour tempeh, peanut stir fry, Ethiopian red lentil stew with spiced butter, Thai red curry with tofu, velvety white bean and tomato stew, pasta and chickpeas with fried capers and tomato shallot butter. Here it comes. And lemony pasta with sausage and broccoli. And my mouth dropped when I saw the adult grilled cheese with
Mm.
chili crisp, everybody.
Yes.
So tell us about it.
So even before I went vegan, I was kind of underwhelmed by most grilled cheese.
Mm-hmm.
That first bite is nice and comforting and gooey, but it's really just bread and cheese. And it's a
Yeah.
lot of the same flavor and kind of one note. And I want more in a grilled cheese. I want different flavors and I want different textures. So this grilled cheese features my fermented cashew cheese. So you're getting some of that more adult, sophisticated tang from your cheese. And it also features the chili crisp, which we've talked about. You're getting so many flavors in one condiment.
I told you it would come back, didn't I? I knew we would talk about it again.
And then there's a little chart where you can make your sandwich sweet and savory, or you can make it spicy tangy. You can
Nice.
make it salty tangy. And my personal favorite is the sweet and savory, where you do the fermented cashew cheese and the chili crisp and a couple chopped dates. And it's just that perfect umami meets sweet. Your brain is just, it won't recover. It will,
Yes.
it will want to eat that all the time.
Oh, I love it. And there really are so many things in this section here to let you level up at home, listeners. We got mushroom carnitas tacos, miso butter seared king oyster scallops, loaded mushroom shawarma flatbread, and buttermilk fried chicken with cornbread and dilly slaw. So you won't be disappointed. And this takes us into the grand finale, my friends, my favorite place to be, and that is sweet treats. Nisha, cake speaks to me, and this chapter starts with a gorgeous photo of a cake with chocolate frosting, and I'm drooling over it. What is a go-to sweet treat for you from here?
If I'm talking about easy sweet treat, I would say the chocolate covered pistachio butter stuffed dates, because that's like a very quick thing. Once the pistachio butter is made, you open up your medjool date, you stuff it with pistachio butter, you dip it in chocolate. If you want, add a little orange zest. It kind of reminds me of like a halva flavor. Freeze it for a little bit. It's so quick once you have the pistachio butter.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I saw those and I got really excited about that with the pistachio butter. I love dates, and then the pistachio butter is just makes it just mouth-watering. And this book's been out for a bit. So is there a sweet treat that you have seen that has been made the most from people so far that they've posted online, or anything that you've seen getting posted?
I try to not be online as much these days,
Atta girl, I support
know.
you. Well, then let's just shout out another favorite sweet treat of yours then.
So I would say the one that is like, if you have company coming over, that would be super impressive, is the chai spiced custard tart with mango, if mango's in season. It's layers of this, like, again, chai spiced, creamy, velvety custard like filling, and you layer in mango, and it's like a couple different layers, and it's beautiful. It's tart, it's sweet, not too sweet. It's got fresh
Oh,
mango. It's just delightful.
and it looks so good. That's the one in here with the sliced mangoes on top, right?
Mhm.
Yes. Oh, and we got soft and chewy ginger cookies with cardamom sugar. Come on, girl. Love it. Caramelized stone fruit crisp with tahini custard, lemon corn cake with lavender and rosemary, crispy spice cobbler cakes with pears. We got chocolate. Oh, we already said that one. Chocolate covered dates, pistachio butter, dark chocolate mousse with raspberry compote, fudgy skillet brownies with raspberry swirl ice cream. And it ends where the chapter began, with the recipe for that cake I mentioned, a celebration cake with chocolate buttercream frosting that is sure to end up your go-to cake for every celebration, dear listener, for years to come. And that, my friends, is big vegan flavor, techniques, and 150 recipes to master vegan cooking. Now, Nisha, what is a book brag for you? Something about this book that you're most proud of now that it's out in the world?
Good question. I'm just proud of, like, making it. Like, it is an enormous book,
Yeah.
and it took a long time to put together. It took a lot of emotional, mental, physical willpower. It's 600 pages. When I first submitted my manuscript, it was 1.5 times the size, so then I had to, like,
Yeah.
spend a lot of time reorganizing, cutting things out. I ended up rephotographing about 75% of the book, so I'm just proud of the sheer amount of work that I was able to put into it and
Mhm.
how it came out, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. I love it. I got to tell you, I do this podcast. I'm always inspired by all the authors and seeing all the books and everything. But you've I almost got emotional. I'm having a moment with food because I've been in it for 10 years, where I'm not feeling as in my own creative space, as like my fire isn't lit right now, right? But like seeing this truly has like just it re-inspired me a little bit. Your
Mm.
perspective on food and the way you've done a deep dive in educating people with this book is so beautiful. It really is. And I think it's going to help so many people because you can take it one bit at a time, right? You can open a page and you can sort of immerse yourself in mastering vegan cooking and different elements. And it's just very inspiring. So thank you for writing this. Thank you for your hard work and dedication, and congratulations on this fabulous book. It really is wonderful.
Thank you. That was very sweet of you to say, and I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. And now we're going to get into your rapid fire to wrap things up. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Spaghetti or bucatini?
Bucatini 1000%.
Yes, it's like a straw that's pasta, right? Like, why not? Pancakes or waffles?
I have a very beloved pancake recipe on my site and also a waffle recipe in this book. So it depends.
The way you just you almost said waffles. I saw it, and then you were like, I can't. I'm betraying my pancake. Okay, we can pass. It can be pancakes and waffles. There we go. Texting or calling?
I'm a millennial, so obviously texting.
I know. Why would someone call? We didn't schedule this call. Why are you calling me?
Nope.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Hot sauce or barbecue sauce?
Hot sauce. You can put it on lots of things. Barbecue sauce is pretty limiting.
Yeah. Favorite day of the week?
Mondays.
Books or movies?
Books.
Winter or summer?
Summer. I hate the cold.
Comedy or drama?
Comedy.
Hiking or biking?
Hiking. I don't know how to ride a bike.
I don't
That's
deal
my
with
fun
bikes.
fact.
Yeah, I mean, I can do it. I just don't. I'm in Chicago now, and there's so many bikers here, and
Oh,
it
it's so unsafe.
terrifies me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just don't want you to get hurt. Like it terrifies me. Spontaneous or planner?
Spontaneous.
And sunset or sunrise?
Sunrise.
Camping or glamping?
Glamping.
There we go. Me too. Nisha, please tell everyone where they can find you on social media and the internet.
Yeah, you can find all my printed or printable recipes on rainbowplantlife.com. That's my website. If you are looking for longer form videos where I teach you how to cook, you can find me on YouTube at Rainbow Plant Life and then Instagram at Rainbow Plant Life. And you can buy my book at bigveganflavor.com or wherever books are sold.
Nice. So, of course, my lovelies, I'm going to tell you too. Be sure to get yourself a copy of Big Vegan Flavor Techniques and 150 Recipes to Master Vegan Cooking. And I'm telling you, it will serve you for the rest of your life. Chock full of amazing, approachable recipes and all of the education on flavors and technique you need to become a cooking pro in your own home. And listen, we're at the holidays. This is a fantastic gift to get somebody who, if you have someone in your life who is, it doesn't even have to be vegan cooking. If they're interested in cooking, period, this is the book for them. So, Nisha, it was a joy to chat with you about this phenomenal book. Congratulations again. And thank you for taking the time to be here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Dustin. It was lovely.
Thank you so much for listening. We'd be so grateful if you would rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. It really does help us.
Yes, thank you so much. And don't forget to check out keeponcookin.com for all of the latest in recipes and Keep On Cooking updates. This has been a Muzzy Cat production.